Friday, March 20th, 2026, AGNDD Intelli Report topic. Chuck Norris, black belt action star of movies and television, dies at 86. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this partially AI-generated article-based video. Chuck Norris, black belt action star of movies and television, dies at 86. He channeled his martial arts skills into heroic roles in films like The Delta Force and Missing in Action, and in the long-running TV series Walker, Texas Ranger. By Clyde Haberman, March 20th, 2026, updated 1:35 p.m. ET. Chuck Norris, who channeled his skills as a martial arts black belt into a durable acting career that left film critics largely unimpressed but delighted millions of fans savoring his good guy triumphs and fortune cookie musings, died on Thursday. He was 86. His death was announced by his family through his official Instagram account, but no further details were immediately available. He was hospitalized earlier that day in Hawaii after experiencing a medical emergency, the family said. As an actor, Mr. Norris was well aware that no one would mistake him for a latter-day Laurence Olivier. In most of his films, and in Walker, Texas Ranger, a CBS television series that ran from 1993 to 2001, he played a warrior who comes to the rescue not with words or guns, but rather with spinning back kicks and other techniques that had made him a leading martial arts practitioner. "I play the man in the arena who's pushed to the wall and forced to blast his way out," he once told the San Francisco Chronicle. And blast out he did, in film after film. His most fertile period on screen stretched from the late 1970s to the early 2000s, with action thrillers like Good Guys Wear Black, 1978. An Eye for an Eye, 1981, Lone Wolf McQuade, 1983, Code of Silence, 1985, Invasion USA, 1985, The Delta Force, 1986, Delta Force II, The Colombian Connection, 1990, and 3 Missing in Action offerings in the 1980s that gave him a chance to rescue Americans held captive in Vietnam long after the war had ended. On occasion, he showed a lighter side and a measure of vulnerability. In Hero and the Terror, 1988, he was an action-minded police detective as well as a sensitive romantic who faints watching a baby being born. But in the main, he was the solid fellow who didn't look for trouble, until the bad guys left him no choice. His dialogue, while scant, could come laden with menace. "I didn't fight. I gave a motivational seminar," he says after dispatching skinhead bullies in Delta Force II. In Code of Silence, he mutters, "If I want your opinion, I'll beat it out of you." And in Braddock, Missing in Action 3, 1988, he says evenly, "I don't step on toes, I step on necks." Film critics, to put it charitably, were generally unenthusiastic, though as the years passed, they acknowledged that Mr. Norris had sharpened his acting skills. Not untypical was a 1977 assessment in the New York Times of his performance in Breaker Breaker as about as emotional as a statue. Kurt Anderson, writing in Time magazine, described him as an expressionless blank conveying nothing but tenacity and absolute cool. His body is impeccable, but the voice is flat and high-pitched. He has instructed writers to give him as few lines as possible, yet he rushes the elemental dialogue that remains. Nonetheless, audiences flock to Mr. Chuck Norris's films, some of which, along with episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger, were directed by his younger brother Aaron, a one-time stuntman. Mr. Norris, whose beard became part of his signature look, was an action hero in a class with Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Charles Bronson, with the monosyllabic manner of early Clint Eastwood tossed in. He appealed to millions who enjoyed seeing America win, for a change, some would say, whether that meant rescuing captive GIs in Vietnam, saving the country from terrorists in Invasion USA, or defeating skyjackers and drug kingpins in the Delta Force series. Assessing his success in The Secret of Inner Strength, My Story, 1988, written with Joe Hyams, Mr. Norris noted that many people want and need someone to identify with, a man who is self-reliant, stands on his own 2 feet, and is not afraid to face adversity. Many people want and need someone to identify with, a man who is self-reliant, stands on his own 2 feet, and is not afraid to face adversity, Mr. Norris wrote in The Secret of Inner Strength, My Story, 1988. They want to believe in me, he said, just as I believed in John Wayne when I was a boy. That boyhood, as he described it, was defined by poverty, with his family moving 13 times in his first 15 years. Carlos Ray Norris was born on March 10, 1940, in Ryan, Oklahoma, the oldest of 3 sons of Ray Norris, a bus and truck driver, and Wilma Scarberry Norris, who managed the home. He grew up in Wilson, Oklahoma, and later Torrance, California, south of Los Angeles. After his parents divorced in 1956, his mother remarried. Later, Mr. Norris recalled his father's alcoholism and absenteeism, and said that he had regarded Hollywood Western stars like Mr. Wayne and James Stewart as surrogate fathers. Mr. Norris, in a 1958 yearbook photo. As a boy, he said, he was shy and inhibited, not notably athletic, and content to fade into the background. Credit: Ron Eisenberg, Michael Oakes Archives via Getty Images. Mr. Norris described himself as shy and inhibited as a boy, not notably athletic, and content to fade into the background. After his graduation in 1958 from North High School in Torrance, he enlisted in the Air Force and became a military policeman. The same year, at 18, he married Diane Holchek, a schoolmate. They divorced in 1989. 9 years later, Mr. Norris married Gina O'Kelly, a former model. She survives him, along with 2 sons from his first marriage, Mike and Eric Norris, 2 children from his second marriage, Danilee and Dakota Norris, a daughter from another relationship, Diana DiCioli, who goes by Dina Norris, his brother Aaron, and many grandchildren. Mr. Norris's brother Wieland died in combat in Vietnam in 1970. Gravesite of Wieland Clyde Norris. The Air Force assigned Mr. Norris, by then nicknamed Chuck by his buddies, to an American base in South Korea. It was there that he developed an interest in martial arts, among them a Korean style of karate called Tang Soo Do. At 5'10" and roughly 165 pounds, he was not physically imposing, but he was strong and agile. By the time he left the Air Force in 1962, he had earned a black belt in karate. Mr. Norris, in 1978, practicing martial arts with his trainer at his home in Palos Verdes, Calif. Credit: Nick Wheeler Corbis via Getty Images. Back in the United States, he continued honing his martial arts techniques, and from 1968 to 1974, he was the world's reigning middleweight karate champion. A form of the sport known as Chun Kuk Do even came to be called the Chuck Norris system. In the late 1960s, he fell into a financial hole after a string of karate schools he owned in Southern California went bust. That's when one of his celebrity students, Steve McQueen, told him, "If you can't do anything else, there's always acting." Mr. Norris decided to try it, heeding Mr. McQueen's advice that movies are visual and dialogue should be pared down. Another major influence was Mr. Norris's friend and fellow martial arts practitioner Bruce Lee, who initially helped him land bit parts in movies. Mr. Norris's first significant film appearance was in The Way of the Dragon, 1972, released in the United States as Return of the Dragon, in which he was one of many opponents finished off by the swift of hand, strong of foot Mr. Lee. Mr. Norris with his friend and fellow martial arts practitioner Bruce Lee on the set of the 1972 movie The Way of the Dragon, which provided him with a key early role. Credit: Concord Productions, Inc. /Golden Harvest Company, Sunset Boulevard, Corbis, via Getty Images. A self-described conservative Christian, Mr. Norris said in 2012 that if President Barack Obama, the country's first black president, were re-elected, our country as we know it may be lost forever. and he encouraged evangelicals to vote against Mr. Obama. Some of Mr. Norris's endorsement deals raised eyebrows, especially his 2019 agreement to be the public face of the gun manufacturer Glock. But he also founded the widely praised organization Kickstart Kids, which began in 1990 as the Kick Drugs Out of America Foundation, promoting martial arts as a path to better character. Throughout, Mr. Norris offered aphorisms encapsulating his formulas for a better life. Among them, "I will develop myself to the maximum of my potential in all ways," and "I will forget the mistakes of the past and press on to greater achievements." Mr. Norris in 1993. "I will develop myself to the maximum of my potential in all ways," was one of his affirmations. His formula for leading a better life. Credit: Catherine McGann, Getty Images. He understood fully that he was not going to land on any list of great actors. "Most of my movies are very one-dimensional," he acknowledged to the Chicago Sun-Times in 1988. 5 years later, he told a reporter at the Times, "I never wanted to be Dustin Hoffman or Al Pacino." "I mean, I never dreamed of being an actor," he said, drawing out the word. "I do what I do." Comments. Adam Bernstein, Deputy Obituaries Editor, 48 minutes ago. Chuck Norris was one of the most popular Hollywood action heroes of the 1970s and 80s, a former karate champion who transitioned to a durable, if not always heralded, film career. He acknowledged that his one-dimensional heroic roles in films like The Delta Force and Missing in Action, and in the long-running TV series Walker, Texas Ranger, were not going to appease critics. But audiences, he noted, want and need someone to identify with, a man who is self-reliant, stands on his own 2 feet, and is not afraid to face adversity. As a boy, he had looked up to John Wayne as a surrogate father, and he was carrying on the tradition, one karate chop at a time. Dennis Johnson, Visalia, CA, 8 minutes ago. God wanted his autograph. Rip Chuck. Norman, Chicago, 34 minutes ago. A few classics to honor the man. Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups, he pushes the earth down. When Chuck Norris enters a room, he doesn't turn the lights on, he turns the dark off. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. Chuck Norris can divide by 0. Time waits for no man, unless that man is Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can slam a revolving door. Chuck Norris doesn't read books. He stares them down until they give him the information he wants. When Chuck Norris does a plank, he's actually holding the earth together. Nick, Colorado, 27 minutes ago. This story was planted by Chuck Norris to lull his enemies into a false sense of security. Chains, South Jersey, USA, 3 minutes ago. Chuck Norris doesn't die, he just transitions. R.I.P. Mr. Norris. Christie, Denver, 34 minutes ago. I am literally just here for the comments. R.W., 12 minutes ago. As a former writer for Walker, Texas Ranger, today is a very sad day. Only met him once, but he was very gracious and down to earth. R.I.P. Chuck. R.P. Smith, Marshfield, Ma, 27 minutes ago. Chuck Norris was one tough dude. He once killed 2 stones with 1 bird. Miles Long, Bering, Washington, 18 minutes ago. I met him once, years ago, at the opening of one of his karate schools by the University Mall in Provo, Orem, Utah. When it was my turn to get an autograph, I said I just was there to shake his hand. He stood, shook my hand, and said it was his privilege. I've never forgotten that. Mark Siegel, Atlanta, 2 hours ago. And let's not forget his seemingly eternal infomercials for the Total Gym. They promised you could have a great workout and get fit in just 8 minutes a day. Christie Brinkley was in many of these spots. She was easier on the eyes than Chuck. L.M., Iowa, 15 minutes ago. He's not dead. He just punched through the other side. Justin, Us, 34 minutes ago. Respectfully, not mentioning the ever-growing genre of one-liner jokes celebrating the hyperbole of Chuck Norris is a glaring omission. LKC, Greater Puget Sound 27 minutes ago. Death once had a near Chuck Norris experience. Dr. Elizabeth Pepe, Florida, 22 minutes ago. I met Chuck Norris in the early 80s. I was in a karate tournament in Miami, and he was there along with Bill Superfoot Wallace for a special demonstration. After he finished signing autographs and was leaving the venue, I chased him down through a parking garage and out onto the street, trying to get a photo with him and Bill. His bodyguard stopped me, but Chuck smiled warmly and indicated that I could approach him. I asked him for a photograph and he said, "Of course." So I put my arm around his waist and he put his arm around my shoulder, and then Bill said that if Chuck was hugging me on one side, then he was going hug me on the other side. So I still have that photo of me in my karate gi and blue belt with Chuck on my right and Bill on my left, centered on the original promotional poster. Malone, Tucson, Arizona, 4 minutes ago. The article should have mentioned the film Return of the Dragon, in which Chuck Norris was the bad guy fighting against Bruce Lee. His name recognition came from this classic. RJS 7777, NK, 11 minutes ago. He was a world champion martial artist who happened to have an acting career. He will be remembered for communicating the honorable traits of martial arts. Hoyden, South Georgia, 4 hours ago. Superman wore Chuck Norris pajamas. Mark S. Colorado, 34 minutes ago. Question: why didn't Chuck Norris believe in the periodic table of elements? Answer: because he only believed in the element of surprise. Rest in peace. Jerry, Dallas, 4 hours ago. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. That and a Chuck Norris roundhouse kick. George, Ohio, 34 minutes ago. Chuck Norris doesn't die, he kicks the bucket into the next dimension. Steve, Michigan, 28 minutes ago. Chuck Norris died 10 years ago. The Grim Reaper only just got up enough courage to tell him. Dave K., New York, 25 minutes ago. Chuck Norris told Chuck Norris jokes at his funeral. Common Incensed, Florida, 28 minutes ago. Ghosts telling Chuck Norris stories because it's the only thing that scares them. R.I.P. Pep, Houston, 2 hours ago. Death meets Chuck. May its soul rest in peace. D. Chapman, Tucson, 30 minutes ago. I have read that he was a kind person. That means more than the movies. Eddie, Detroit, 33 minutes ago. I met Mr. Norris while working at an event which featured many stars. He was so kind to me, and I have always remembered his graciousness. May he rest in peace. Gob Bluth, Sudden Valley, 31 minutes ago. When Chuck Norris uses an exercise machine, the machine gets stronger. Claude, Silicon Valley, 1 hour ago. No mention of how Chuck Norris's legendary toughness was one of the original and longest-lasting internet memes. Time waits for no man, unless that man is Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is why Waldo hides. The flu gets a Chuck Norris shot. Chuck Norris's tears cure cancer. Shame he never cries. The ball dodges Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can speak Braille. Chuck Norris can win Connect 4 in 3 moves. 0RR. Chuck Norris watches 60 minutes in half an hour, or Chuck Norris cooks minute rice in 30 seconds. Or Freddy Krueger has nightmares about Chuck Norris. Urkrow, Pennsylvania, 23 minutes ago. You'd like to say Chuck Norris went to a better place, but he just made the other place better.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD Until I Report, dear viewers. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.